Hi folks, John with the Wingman115 Channel. Thanks for checking in. I'm so happy to be out here in the woods today. I'm doing a video review on a lantern stove combo called the FireFly Lantern. Now the folks from FireFly Stoves sent this to me to do a practical use test and review on this. Thought I'd come up in the woods, give a real world test. It's basically a rocket stove. What it has is a fuel chamber, and it's all hollowed out, the air chamber, so you get a lot of air coming in. The lantern sits on top, and then you're going to put your cook set on top of this. We're going to test it out today, boiling some water, making some hot apple cider. It's a great day for that up here in the woods. But first, we're going to cut away. I'm going to do a quick tabletop specs rundown of this, give you a close bird's eye look, and then we'll do some practical application where I'll cut away and I'll do some night shots from at home in my backyard. A little bit easier to film out there in a controlled environment of how much light this is going to put out. And then you'll see today us boiling some water with this to make some hot apple cider. And then I'll come back, give you some final thoughts and a rating on this item. Now for some practical application using the FireFly Lantern stove. Seen a little bit of the prep work. I cut up some pinyon pine. You want to fill it up to this little indentation line. That's what the manufacturer recommends. I sawed up a bunch of chips, and what I'm going to use is a piece of like waxed Vaseline cotton in here to help get this going. I'm going to mash it down a little bit. And I'm going to use my fire steel, and then we'll drop it in there. And then for the sake of the test, we're going to boil 40 ounces of water. So let's see if we can get this lit. It's kind of windy out here today. So we are started. I will place this down inside, and then we'll set that on there. And that's why you use the handles. And I can already feel heat coming out. Now, one of the concerns that we talked about off camera is we're wondering how smutted up that glass globe is going to get once this fire really starts cranking. And I can feel the heat coming out of there right now. So we'll throw this on. I can already see a little bit of smoke in there. Let's blow a little air into that chamber and let's see if we can get this fire going. This should burn hot enough. Let me take that off to where there won't be flame. It'll just be a flame coming out of it once it really gets going. So folks, this is why we do real world tests on gear, to see if it's going to work for you. Now, what would I consider using this stove for? Well, it's kind of big and bulky to, quote, be a backpacker stove. If I had a hunter's camp, maybe. If I was car camping, that would be a consideration where size and weight constraints isn't, quote, a factor, because ounces turn into pounds when you're backpacking, and you just wouldn't want to carry something that's just way too heavy. But if I'm car camping, if I have a cabin out in the woods or a base camp, this might be a consideration. If we're doing a bug out and I need something that's, quote, multi-purpose, then you have the lantern combo, which we'll test out later on in my backyard. But so far, I'm seeing a lot of smoke get up inside the globe. And it's, quote, rated as a biofuel. So I mean, I'm using pinyon pine that is just insanely dry. So we'll just sit back and we'll watch it for a little bit and we'll see how it does. We're going to round up a little more fuel and we'll drop it in there and we'll see if we can't stoke the fire just a little bit, get it going. That's why you want to use the tongs here. Lift this up, drop in a little more fuel. See, this is my biggest concern, that air's not circulating enough in there and it's just smutting up that lantern globe. Yeah, it's not getting the pot hot enough yet. This is why I come out here. I keep saying this, but this is why we test the gear. I want to make sure that if I'm going to put a seal of approval on something for you folks out there, that gear is going to perform as advertised. Now, I'm not saying as a disclaimer that I'm doing this 100% the right way. I'm sure I'll be schooled by the manufacturer on how I'm doing this, but I want to break this down to the lowest common denominator, because if you're in a stressful situation, you're not going to be doing things like you normally would be doing. You're going to be doing things erratic. You may not have, quote, the best fuel conditions, the best weather conditions. And I mean, you can't get any better than this. It's a dry day out here in the backcountry. I'm using dry pinyon pine. I'm not sure. And I really don't want to talk negative about items, and I want to give stuff a fair shake. So we're going to test this out just a little bit more. I'll be back in just a bit. Okay, I'm trying to be as diplomatic and as politically correct as I can be, but I got to keep it real. I'm going to call this boil test. Me and the son-in-law aren't going to have hot apple cider today because we just can't get this rocket stove fired up. And I've had a lot of experience with rocket stoves. If you've followed along on the channel and you've seen me do a review on the Calibarret stove, the bio stove, I know how to use a rocket stove. I filled this up the way that they recommended. We lit the fire, we let it catch a little bit, but as you can see, it's smutting up. It's what I said from the beginning. My biggest fear was that it would smut up and that it just wouldn't boil. So I'll get to where it'll do a flame, cyclone flame for a little bit, the way that the manufacturer says. And then when you put a pot on, smoke will come back in and it won't boil the water. Now, we played around with this, I would say, at least a half hour. We've been feeding fuel into this. I mean, we're doing real world testing. It's not like we're in some studio where it's QVC or whatever and they got their props and everything. I want you folks to see our trials and tribulations out here. And I'm trying to be as fair and objective because I know that companies are working hard with a lot of capital and investment to bring a product to market. But if you're going to have an item and you may buy it and your life may be dependent on an item, I want you to buy the best quality, the best bang for the buck. This is around $99. So I'm going to be a little bit harder on something like this than if it was a $20 or $30 stove, because you folks work too hard for your money out there. So you know what? I'm going to call it. I'm not even going to go do the lantern review because it's just aggravating me at this point. We're just going to go to final thoughts. This right here, I hate to say it. It pains me to say it. It's a 1. It's a 1. I hate to say that, and I'm sure maybe the manufacturer will send me an email or a nasty call saying that I'm doing it wrong, but I've been out in the woods all my life doing stuff, and I mean, you can get a flame going, but the combustion chamber just isn't getting that hot enough to gasify that wood, and I'm using really dry wood. I hate to say give something a fail and put it on camera, but I got to keep it real. You folks deserve integrity and honesty. I'm sorry. You got to go back to the drawing board on this. I'm sure with the wood pellets that it probably would have worked, quote, as advertised. But in the real world, let's be honest. I'm not going to go down to the hardware store, feed store, wherever you're getting wood pellets and use that. One, it's not cost effective to do that if you're on a budget and you're going to use just regular biomass items. So I have to stick with my rating of a 1. I'm sorry about that, but I got to keep it honest. Folks, this is Wingman. I'm going to pull the plug on this review. I'm going to use the water that we're going to use to boil to put this fire out. And what I'm going to do is, in being objective, I told my buddy Mike over at Blue Mountain Bushcraft and Outdoors that I would send this to him. I'm going to send it to him, and we'll get another YouTuber who's an outdoorsman to test and review this, and let's get his thoughts, and maybe he'll pass it on in the review ring that we have, in the Gauntlet review ring. Folks, this is John with the Wingman115 Channel. I thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Take care.